Manasquan is a little town on the Jersey Shore, about an hour south of New York City, and about an hour and a half north of Atlantic City. It is a charming little town with a busy main street, schools, train station, and of course, the summer trade. On the south end of the Manasquan Beach is the Manasquan Inlet, the mouth of the Manasquan River. It is also known as the Northern Gateway to the Inland Waterway, a continuous path from Manasquan all the way to Florida by water without ever having to go into the ocean. As you come through the inlet, on your right is a protected, curved shoreline. We call it Fisherman'S Cove. Recently, the land was taken over by the Monmouth County Park Service, and all that is left of the original Fisherman's Cove bait and tackle shop is the frame of the old shop, made into a ranger station. For many years, tourists, fishermen, crabbers, boaters, surfers, musicians, and assorted locals spent many hours on the porch, in the yard, on the cove, and in the parking lot, making memories. Memories that new signs, new rules, a redesigned ranger station cannot ever erase. Back in the old days, there were no tall tales to be told here. Yes, giant stripers were weighed in, record-breaking fluke as well. And yes, fresh spearing was considered a local delicacy. Open a can of beer or soda, fire up some clams, lobsters, burgers, and come back with us now to days of yesteryear. But remember, no tall tales allowed.
This area of land is known as Fisherman's Cove and has an interesting history, of course. The original owners were our local Indians who never believed they owned the land, but they were the caretakers of it. Then in the 1600s, after the English ventured to our shores, King Charles II of England claimed ownership of what was known as Jersey. It was designed to a general board of proprietors, and in 1664, King Charles granted all of this land to his brother, the Duke of York. In a few months, the Duke made a grant of Jersey to the Dukes of Carteret and Berkeley, which they in turn divided. When Carteret died, the Eastern Division was purchased by 24 English investors with a board formed to conduct business. They managed the land over the years, and the 24 shares were split into fractions among their heirs and were sold to other investors. Enter the Colliard family. Mr. Yard and his family emigrated from England in 1655 to Philadelphia. Over 200 years passed, and in 1895, family member H. Yard and son, Carl, formed the American Timber Company. Working through this company, the Yard family helped develop Manasquan and Spring Lake as summer resorts. They owned much of the Manasquan Beach property and turned the beach area over to the public in 1930 for $1 in exchange for the right to subdivide 350 lots west of the beach. Fisherman's Cove land was leased from the American Timber Company by Ed Manley, and from the early 1940s to 1950, according to the record books, rent for a year was $300. During this time, Ed Manley built the bait house and on the property and ran his business during the summer months. He was followed by Mr. Johnny Hogan, who leased the land and owned the shop. That's an important point. We did not own the land, none of them did. they only rented or leased it for business from 1951 to 1958. In 1958, Clem and Ruth Danish purchased a building known well as Fisherman's Cove Bait Shop until they donated the building to the Monmouth County Park System in 1996. The bait shop was a true piece of nostalgia known by both Squan natives and summer visitors. It was loved by young fishermen learning to fish, old fishermen sharing knowledge and stories, by surfers waxing their boards, and by families using rowboats and taking pictures, and artists who frequently came by to sketch and conduct their craft. What family does not have a picture of the bait shop? My dad liked to fish for stripers using clams, and we were on the beach, which is known as Whiting Avenue Beach. And at that point, we were just sitting there, and Dad would have me cut the clams, and he'd cast them out. And of course, we'd hope to get a striper. We only had about 4 clams, and those went very quickly when you have a lot of crabs biting off the bait. Well, he said, let's go down up here and to the bait shop. And I thought he meant Bill's Bait and Tackle, which was at First Avenue. And that wasn't the case. He said, no, let's go down to the other bait shop. So we walked down there, and at that point, Dad, of course, he wanted half a dozen clams, and we did that. And back then, the clams were only about a nickel a piece. So you can see there's been a time gap and a money gap between all this. Well, when that happened, Dad was leaning on the counter talking to John Hogan. Along with him was Mr. Gardner Atlee, a teacher at Manasquan High School at the time, and Wayne Pierce, who was a local who often worked for us in summer at the Cove. Well, as they started talking, John started to say he was kind of tired of having to go out, get bait, and trounce up and down the river, and of course make customers happy. And that's when Dad finally said he was kind of tired of buying bait from John, and what can you do? He said, I'd like to buy. And John said, I want to sell. And with that, Pop saying again, I will buy. And they reached across the counter, shook hands, and put down about $100. And there the deal was sealed on that night. So when we were all finished with that, we walked back. It didn't even dawn on me at the time that we were going to be involved with the bait house, because I was about 8 years old at the time. So with that in mind, we went back up the beach. Pop made a few more casts, and that evening kind of just disappeared until Dad took Mom down to the beach and said, I bought a house at the beach. Didn't say on the beach, he said at the beach. And so as she walked down and he walked down at Whiting Avenue, he stood on the corner of Whiting Avenue and said, how do you like it? And with that, Mom was looking around the neighborhood to see, was it that house? Was it this house? You know, not quite sure what it was going to be. And at that time, he said, no, not either one of them. That. And he pointed to Fisherman's Cove. And Mom's response was, ugh. That's all with that. And that kind of sealed the deal there too. And that was their moment that Fisherman's Cove began with us and the Danish family.
Ed Manley was the man who actually started Fisherman's Cove. He was up at the inlet area, and as other strong storms came by, he had to keep moving the cove building further and further back to where it is at its current day. And about, let's just say, 6 or 7 years before Pop bought the place, Johnny Hogan is the one who had Bait and Tackle. And one of his co-owners or co-work friends was named Gardner Atlee. He was a teacher in Manasquan High School, English teacher. And he and Dad would definitely get into talking about the poetry of the days that they were in high school, what they had to memorize, you know. So it was pretty classic just to listen to them. But Ed Manley, kind of a big fella in there, had the biggest and best looking sandwiches of all. And no matter how much I asked for just a piece of one of those sandwiches, the answer was always no. But I kept trying. And then over the years, of course, he passed away up here in uptown in Manasquan. So it was fun to talk with him and learn. One of the things you have to realize too is that when you're fishing down there, and you want to do something better for your customers, the whole point was, what can I do? Well, Ed Manley, I think in World War II, he was a dental technician. And as a dental technician, he had access to fine tools. Well, being at the bait house after his tours of service, he made a lure. And it was a spoon, very thin spoon, and he called it the Squan Wobbler. And the Squan Wobbler was a very simple, again I say spoon, single hook, and he would catch some of the nicest snapper blues going. Then Johnny Hogan came along, and I believe maybe he, Gardner Atlee, and maybe Wayne Pierce, who was a constant and a worker at Fisherman's Cove for many, many years, they developed a lure called the Killer, the double hook Killer snapper lure, and that worked out well too, and you could use it today and it worked just as well. And then I came up with an idea, and I knew somebody was trying to reel a line in one time, and the snappers kept chasing the bait afterwards. That was incomplete, but they always followed the bobber. So I just got a piece of dowel from a broom, cut it to about 3 inches, painted it a color, any color, and about 1.5 feet after that I put a small yellow hook and threw it out and just popped it across the top of the water, and that became the Slammer. Literally sold thousands of them down at the Cove. So I guess it was out of necessity and the fun of it all, the excitement of it all, that just being there, your mind could wander off in some very good places and make that happen. But I think we at Fisherman's Cove, we were all surprised by getting involved with Fisherman's Cove. We had no idea it would develop into something that would be remembered for a long time. So the 38 years that we were at Fisherman's Cove, and then all the years after 1996 thereabouts, it's still thought about, it's still asked questions about. So that's kind of a high experience for all of us. There's a lot of pride in all of that, and we were very proud to be the owners of Fisherman's Cove. But surprisingly enough, we never thought we were the owners of Fisherman's Cove. We just thought of it as the Cove. There were at least 2 different areas along the Manasquan beachfront. One was towards the inlet, and the inlet had, of course, the bait and tackle shops that I previously mentioned. And the other one was the fact that Main Beach had its own life. In its life, that was the center of the beach area. And if you came off the beach, you had other popular businesses, and those other businesses were facilities like the Osprey bar and on Main Street and First Avenue. Or you had Leggett's, another bar nearby. Or you had the children's little fun park up on the boardwalk. All these different things that were up there made the difference. So that was a tremendously busy section. As you went back towards Main Beach, you would have, I keep saying the Surf and Sand restaurant was a drive-in on a gravel surface. Then you had Main Street Bridge. That was the dividing line, really, that said you are at the beach. As soon as you come over it, you're in beach land, and that was Manasquan.
Back then, when Quint came up with the 58, and we lived or summered with on 4th Avenue. The bungalow that we were at was in line with the first lagoon of the 2 lagoons that were there. When I wanted to go fishing, I would go out of the bungalow and walk up 3rd Avenue. There was no macadam. It was all fine pebbles and going barefoot. So anybody that had a vehicle that rode on the road made that little dust, and it was a great place when you're barefooted going all the way up to the inlet. I would go up on the porch and get my bait and go in, try my hand at fishing. And it was only the summer times that I actually came down to 3rd Avenue. 3rd Avenue was also was a small route to fishing Main Street Bridge for snappers, and it'd go through that high rack of everything that's growing wild down here.
The reeds.
Reeds.
The what?
The reeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, whatever. And get up there and fish Main Street, and we weren't able to. Everybody fished there. Nobody was told to leave, as now we probably are a safety hazard, you know. But anyway, that's what happened to me early on in the early phases, and not knowing that my parents over time had acquired Fisherman's Cove. But there you go.
We as kids pretty much played together, having all those weeds, the reeds to hide in. We made forts. If it was wintertime when we came down, all the rowboats had been pulled up into the reeds, so we would turn them over and play hide and seek, pretty much like that. Or climb the roofs and jump from house to house up on the beachfront, playing hide and seek.
Dan and I were playing out in the back with Carl, and Carl was little.
Yeah, he used to play in the sand dune.
In the sand dune that was like there, yeah. And one time Dan and I decided to leave him there. He fell asleep, and the water came in around the bulkhead. Oh, my mom had a fit. That's when my mom said, "Clem, we're filling it in."
Yep.
So it was my parents that filled in all underneath the bait shop
and made a parking lot.
Got the jetty rocks and made the parking lot what it is.
As far as very hard workers for Mom and Dad, Dad, again, professional sheet worker, always up in Linden, a union man. My older brother Dwayne, same. And the rest of us were not in the sheet metal business, but when we had to help, we did. And I did that many a time too. And probably had the worst job of all when they would put up the ductwork. That was beautiful. Then they said, okay, you go up and put on the insulation. You know, Mom, on the other hand, was definitely involved with the city of Manasquan, so she was on a planning board. And of course, she got to know a lot of the folks in that manner. But her greatest aspect was that of being a consummate artist, a beautiful watercolor artist. And it was something that if she was talking to another artist, just be quiet and listen, because they have their own language, their own imaginations, and something on a blank piece of paper would become a piece of art you want to keep for life.
Mom was a baseball player.
Player.
Softball. She was a tomboy, and I guess that's why we became tomboys.
Yeah, she was left-handed, and the coach asked her to come back the following year to teach the girls how to pitch. Yeah. My parents were great dancers. They were ballroom dancers.
Yeah, they ballroomed with Fred Astaire.
Fred Astaire,
Yeah.
yeah. They got trophies.
Taught us how.
Taught us how to dance. A really sweet story about my father is that all the girls, whether in the family or our friends, whoever caught a striped bass, my dad had ordered a box of little striped bass, striped bass medals, and whoever caught a striped bass got he gave a medal to, so we could wear them. Yeah, I still have mine
on
too.
my corduroy jacket on the collar.
So that's another cute story. Not only that, but the big net. Remember, the big net always had to be sewed. And so we all learned how to do that, and we would all take turns sitting
The big
on,
seine, yeah.
Yeah, the big, huge seine, and we'd all learn how to sew that up.
If you were on our bad side, you'd be on the deep end of the seine. You're on the water up to your shoulders.
Only him. Dwayne was really nice.
Dwayne was always
Dwayne
nice.
and Dad were
Yeah.
always, they never
was slam.
they never put us on the deep end.
No, he
this
did.
one
And
did.
he'd laugh. And then once the guys came in with the big buckets of spearing, killies, and all of us, even our kids, they all learned how to sort the bait.
Yep.
Yep.
Worms or sandworms.
Oh, yeah.
Or if someone said, well, what's the difference? It says, well, the sandworm has more arms,
Yeah.
more bites
Yes.
Yeah.
than the bloodworm.
But we always hated the smell. We would wash our hands so many times every time we waited on a customer because the smell of the spearing.
Christine, when she would go get the worms, she would take a piece of paper towel and pick the worms out with a paper towel and put it in the grass. Right, Chris?
Right. Yep. And one of my friends was so deathly scared of the worms, Donna.
Yeah.
I chased her around the bait shop, and she jumped into one of our older sister's car, and she put newspaper up on the windows, and I had sandworms all over the window. And when she took it down, she screamed.
Yeah.
Grandfather was a good motivator because we'd have bait that we bought. We didn't buy everything, but we caught it like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And again, this bait's not fresh enough to sell to the customers, so we throw it all back in the river. I'm like, what are we gonna do now? He's like, you're gonna go get more bait. I'm like, what? Then we back out the boat we went. And we were always under secrecy. We couldn't talk about any place we ever went. You know?
Yeah, can't tell where you got the bait from.
Nope.
My dad would even, I know sometimes he would tell people a secret that people always wanted the real fresh clams, right? Our secret was Dad
The
would
older
save
the
the
better.
dead clams, the stinky clams.
The older the better.
There's a
older the
special
better.
name for that clam.
Yeah, what is it? The match either.
You know what I enjoyed the most about going for bait? It wasn't really getting the bait. It wasn't really about sorting the bait, but grabbing that refrigerator and getting that electrical shock when you open the door.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That was always a lot of joy here. I'm like,
A great deal of my life hasn't changed. It's a lifestyle growing up in Manasquan. And Fisherman's Cove, which I always just referred to it as the bait house, has been here since I've been a child. Certainly was always down here listening to Carl's dad tell a story. I did like to fish. There was a time when I bought 3 clams for $0.25. I don't think you can buy much for $0.25 anymore, but the story came with it. Carl's dad would tell a story, all for $0.25. 3 clams and a story. But there was always a lot of music and good times here as well, you know. If Carl were hanging around today, he'd probably have a guitar nearby and local musicians in town. We'd get a little jam going. You know, even though things change in town, the memories I have are still here. Always had a boat, could pull up here and hang out, and yeah.
Hi, my name's Dave Nelson. I've been asked to share a couple of memories about the bait house with y'all. Carl and I went through high school together, know him well, been out for bait many a time. My greatest memory is that of Ruth's bathroom. The toilet seat was a snapper. It would not stay up. So if you were a guy, you either had to figure out how to take a pee standing there holding that seat up or sit down and do it. But that was my number one memory, was Ruth's toilet. I hope he's got that in the garage. That's a keeper. Another memory would be of Clem and his sayings. Boy, he had them. He had plenty of them. I think the greatest one I remember was anybody can catch a fish off a boat, but a real fisherman catches them off the beach. And if you don't go, you can't catch them. I sure do miss Clem and Ruth. They were something, they were. I miss the bait house. I'm sure we all do. But I'm going to leave you there. Again, Dave Nelson, good talking to y'all. Peace.
Basically, I met Carl back in first grade, back in '61 when I first came up here. And he and I hit it off quite well. We were at the Teller Avenue Elementary School back then. And after a while, he disappeared from the Linden. He went back to Linden, and then they moved down here permanently. And when he did, every morning, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, Dave, we gotta go get bait. We gotta get bait. He'd wake me up. We'd go down, get the bait. Ruth, Mrs. Danish, she got used to me, knew I was pretty good with math and stuff because I was excellent in high school. And basically, I took over the bait shop for a while when Carl disappeared. Where's Carl? And that's why that became very famous. Where's Carl? But every time you talk to Ruth, man, she just, you know, I don't know where Carl is. And she always told me, I'm not sure. She always told me, she's always open to me, but she liked me and I always loved working here. I mean, it was a great place, you know, back in the 60s. We grew up here, Carl and I, and we had a great time. I mean, like I said, we grew up, we basically ran this river. I mean, we used to run this river and people didn't even know where we were sometimes, and we come back with strange things sometimes. But Peter Myers would show up sometimes. Stevie Betts was here a couple times. Boy, I mean, it's just, and Chris, he was always playing guitar. Carl was always on the guitar. If he wasn't, he's on the steel pedal. Carl and I sometimes have gone out here rowing, and we should not have been out, period. We were going out this inlet one time, and there was like, I'm going to say about 12-foot swells coming in. We go down a swell, go up a swell. We're heading out to the rocks, going down and up. And everybody on the shoreline just cheered us on. Carl and I looked at each other and we said, we doing the right thing? We decided to go back and have another beer. But basically this place was a party place. I mean, every Labor Day, Carl would gather wood up, have a barbecue out here, burgers basically, and hot dogs. But sometimes you wonder, some of that wood he picked up was either creosote or pressure treated. And we were eating this food off of that stuff. It was a strange place. And like I said, Ruth, you know, once they kind of stopped staying down here all the time, Carl kind of took over this joint. And that's when it became recognized as a place to stop by and have a good time. Yeah, Fisherman's Cove was an interesting place a long time ago. Back then, there was pilings out here. Cross out that way, we had pilings around here. And when the Danishes took over this place, I remember Ruth telling me a story. She came out here back in like the 50s on a horse and buggy. And that's when the first time she saw this place, Mrs. Danish. So we came down. Carl and I used to kind of like have a good time out here, but they had like, oh, about a dozen these rowboats. They're just rotten, falling apart. And we used to take them out on these pilings. And Carl and I jump up and down on these boats at both ends and just split it right in half. And we're out there just floundering in the water and just having a great old time. And then back in the old days, we had the parking lot behind this joint. And Carl and I, probably at 12 years old, we were parking cars. That tight to each other. I mean, it was just not relative. But we used to take the signs because they're nice painted pieces of plywood, and a sandbar would show up out here. Getting toward the low tide area, and it's just, Queen Mary always brought the water in just enough, so it just made it all slick. And you got that surf, you know, one of these parking signs. It's not even a curb board or anything, just wham! You slam it out there, catch up that sucker, you got one hell of a ride. Then after a while, we realized that's when Carl and I got into surfing. Yeah, this is a good place to learn. Waves are coming, you know, during big storms, northeasterns, stuff like that. You get swelled in here about 3 foot or something, but they cut in right about here, start curling in, and just kept going and going and going. So, and they were easy waves. Yeah, and you know you weren't going any too far unless you got way out there in the current, but. But he and I still, to this day, we still get together and have a great time. Nothing but. But otherwise, I mean, it was just a great lifestyle to live. Carl and I grew up here, and we do not regret those days. Like Carl says, once upon a blue-collar town. And he should start a book with that.
In 1980, Manasquan began talks with the Monmouth County Park System about the preservation of Fisherman's Cove. Residents started up a community group called the Manasquan Preservation Association, which became the Save the Cove Committee. The Manasquan Environmental Commission and the Monmouth County Environmental Commission were wholeheartedly supporting the acquisition and preservation of the cove. In 1981, public meetings were held, but the landowners had already submitted a CAFRA, which is Coastal Area Facility Review Act, which is a state law designed to manage and protect the state's coastal resources. This inquiry was to build approximately 400 townhouses with a marina, clubhouse, and parking lot. Let's jump ahead to 1991, when an environmental constraint report concluded that the landowner can develop 35 acres of the property. In June of 1992, the local Environmental Commission, along with the Jersey Shore Audubon Society and the Monmouth Conservation Foundation, submitted letters to Manasquan's mayor, urging him to preserve the cove. History buffs, pay attention now. In August of 1994, the General Board of Proprietors, a group which goes back to the chain of King Charles in the 1600s, filed a lawsuit claiming the land was really held by them, not the present owners, due to a deed problem in 1884. After an extensive litigation, it was found that the existing landowners, the American Timber Company and Carl Yard, have a defendable title. After more squabbling and a debate, the Monmouth County Board of Chosen Freeholders put together financing to purchase the first 35 acres of the cove for $5.1 million. In 1997, Manasquan gave the county another 17 acres that had been used by the town as a parking lot, bringing the cove total to 55 acres. This is when the bait shop became a ranger station. The town gained 55 acres of natural environment for all generations to come and enjoy, but lost one of Manasquan's great landmarks, the Fisherman's Cove Bait House.
and we wanted to know, if the building could still be used. And well, their intention was to make a ranger station out of it. So okay, the building is going to be there. It may not look like Fisherman's Cove from the beginning, or on improved side, but that's exactly what it was going to be. And then we wanted to have something that would mark this as a donation to the county. And that's where
it was donated.
It was either going to be a plaque on the building itself, and I think
happened.
Robbie or some
Robbie, my
they got a
son.
nice big stone.
Yes.
No,
and that
he
was-
was
that
in
was put there.
Maria's one night,
Yeah.
and he was sitting next to one of the freeholders.
Freeholders.
He was talking to one of the freeholders, and so they were just having a nice conversation about fishing and stuff like that, and came around about that. It was his grandparents that owned the bait shop and everything that went down, and so the county had said, your parents really do deserve some credit for that. So Robbie had told this fella that he said, I don't want just a sign on the bait shop, a plaque. He said, how about a jetty stone with a plaque on it? And lo and behold, they delivered.
Yeah, that is nice.
Isn't it nice?
It's nice to see that there.
It is, yeah. And the plaque itself.
The big
you know.
sign and the stone.
I wish they hadn't taken the front porch off, because you used to be able
Exactly.
to still walk up on the porch and take a breather, because there was
Yeah.
always a breeze, no matter
And I think
where
it would
you
still
were,
be
how
nice.
hot it was. There was always a breeze on that front porch.
We used to have a lot of people just ask if they could come up and sit down on the porch.
Yeah.
Can they take a break?
Enjoy
Yep.
the breeze and watch the sunset.
This was taken from a resume written some years ago. I realized that each student has a different level of ability, creativity, and skill. It is important for me to tap into each individual's ability level and help to develop it to its fullest potential. I am able to apply various methods of teaching to meet the needs of the students and to bring them feelings of pride and accomplishment. I believe that my teaching skills are instrumental in working with students that have special needs. The words are from a resume, which might also have read: catches bait, sells tackle, rows a boat, fishes, and paints, draws, plays guitar, and surfs a longboard endlessly, and is a friend to all who know him. You know him as the youngest son, Carl Danish. Among other important Manasquan things that he did, do you remember the giant 30-foot by 16-foot drops he painted for the town's centennial production of the Manasquan pageant? The many drops he painted for the Manasquan High School Drama Club, of which he served for a time as assistant director, and his solo performance of Where Have All the Flowers Gone every year at the Manasquan High School Drama Club's coffee house. That hasn't much to do with Fisherman's Cove, though, and you are wondering why we even mention it in this documentary. But truth be known, it has everything to do with this documentary.
There were break-ins down by the beach in the winter. And Mom and Dad had asked Carl when he graduated college, would you stay in the bait shop? Of course he did. That he was in seventh heaven.
This documentary has been about a place that once was in this town, a place which the family made into a town landmark. Carl almost single-handedly saved the cove from becoming many houses, crowded together. More McMansions in a place that was once upon a blue-collar town. Carl took freeholders all around the cove, showed them the environment, the habitats for so many seaside creatures who were about to lose their homes forever. Reeds, weeds, shells, and sand about to be rolled over and foundations laid for more overcrowding in Manasquan, but due in a large part of bringing the real cove to the freeholders. The cove was saved. Forever it will remain as the Manasquan so many of us remember. For those of you who hung out with Carl, sat around, and yes, had a beer or two, or three, sang songs into the wee hours of the morning, and hugged one another as the sun so beautifully set over the river. Knowing these were indeed extraordinary times, to you and to Carl and the Danish family, Fisherman's Cove will forever be strong in our memories. One last thing. Where's Carl? Let's finish this. Our minds awash with the memories. Here's the ending, as best we can tell it.
So many of our friends all grew up at the bait shop, and they love it. Like, they tell so many stories. Everybody does. Everybody loved the bait shop, and so many people have thanked my parents, you know, for having such an opportunity as kids to grow up there. Good memory.
Well, it's not just you, and it's not just me. There's nothing to read between the lines. I'm just a man, and you're a woman, and we live in extraordinary times. Living in extraordinary times. Well, the moon's been touched, she blushes pale. Can't get that first kiss off her mind. Lovers still call her, she's deaf and she's blind. Yes, we live in extraordinary times. Living in extraordinary times. Call it an inspiration. Call it a dream. Just a life is rarely what it seems to be. Well, I read somewhere we're near the end, but there's so many good things left to find. No, I don't believe it's over just yet. We're just living in extraordinary times. Living in extraordinary times. Oh. And life is rarely what it seems to be. Well, I read somewhere we're near the end, but there's so many good things left to find. No, I don't believe it's all over yet. We're just living in extraordinary times. Living in extraordinary times. We are living in extraordinary times. We are living in times. We live in extraordinary times. got the plans. We've got so much to do together, and I don't understand. Wheels keep turning, and we never seem to move. One trip around the sun, it's over, it's done. A year's a lot to lose. And the leaves upon the trees, they die and blow away. It's over, it's done. Just one trip around the sun. Wanna go forward, forget this elliptical path. Straight ahead, never stop, and never look back. We gravitate back to our self-centered lives, and we learn to balance, find china plates and kitchen knives. While the blades of grass and flowers fade, they die and blow away. It's over, it's done. One trip around the sun. Rise and shine and roll across the sky. Say goodnight, but never say goodbye. I am waiting for you. 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 8,760 hours in 1 year. Some just crawl by, and others seem to disappear. But it's only time, and there's more where that came from. And waiting for you never really hurt. It's just no fun. And the leaves upon the trees, they die and blow away. It's over, it's done. Just one trip around